What is up, my friends? And welcome from Canada and the United States of America. I'm Mark Perry, editor of CFL News Hub. Welcome to the live coverage of the 2023 CFL Draft. We have a bunch of people in our room right now. I'm going to add them in a second. Dino and Aaron from CFL News Hub will be joining us momentarily as I am getting all this stuff geared up. Welcome to the program. We got a lot of stuff we're going to go over. We're going to follow the draft coverage, talk to our CFL News Hub writers, and they're going to give their takes on stuff. So before we kind of jump in, before all these picks get started, I'm going to welcome in Aaron and Dino from CFL News Hub. Guys, can you see me at all? Or you can't see me, but you can hear me, right? Okay, all right. Aaron is on the line. I got Dino somewhere in there. He's muted, or you can watch. Aaron, welcome to the program. So it's the first time we actually got to meet. Now you cover the CFL. You cover the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I guess when we got 5 minutes before the draft is about to begin, give us a take on who you think Hamilton will be interested in this draft.
At defensive back. They also need help at offensive line. I think in the CFL with the long season, with injuries being a potential issue, you need depth in the offensive line, defensive backfield, and wide receivers. They definitely need help at defensive back, and offensive line depth always helps.
So, what was your take when the big signing of Bo Levi Mitchell to the Hamilton Tiger Cats? Is he the answer?
I don't know if he's the answer. I think he's a step forward. The problem with Dane Evans was solid quarterback, technically, fundamentally sound. He just had a hard time making decisions under pressure, and it was a turnover machine, and that's hard to overcome in a league where you get three downs to get a first down. You can't afford turnovers, especially when you're on the end of the field. I think Levi Mitchell, he brings a lot of experience. He's had a lot of success. He's won at the championship level. He'll bring a level head to the table, which I think is important. He seems to have good continuity, at least in the offseason, with Tommy Condell's offense. And they need to give him weapons to use. They need to make sure they protect him because he's not necessarily the most mobile quarterback in the league, but they need to protect him and give him a chance to throw the guys who can move the ball. And I think if they play within that mindset, we're going to let Bo Levi Mitchell move the ball with his weapons. They'll be pretty good.
All right, so we're going to take a look at the draft order right now here online. So round one is the Ottawa Red Blacks. Then we've got the Edmonton Elks, Saskatchewan Roughriders 4, Stampeders, Montreal Alouettes at 5. There's Hamilton Tiger Cats at 6. Who are you thinking who is the guy do you think that the Hamilton Tiger Cats might grab at 6?
Honestly, I think the guy they should pick up, depth on the offensive line is a huge issue. It's been an issue for the Tiger Cats the last couple seasons. They've had injuries. It's been a turnstile of offensive lineman. I could see them trying to go for a Dante Bull if he's available, but there's no guarantee he's going to be healthy, and there's no guarantee he's going to be in the CFL. He might get picked as an undrafted free agent in the NFL. So I think Philip Grovac from Western is a great run blocker. At Western, I was watching Western film this week. He played out really well, and he would be a good foundational piece for their offensive line. And he would probably need to grow as a pass blocker, but their veterans around him should give him a chance to grow. They have what they need as a first string at every position. The offseason was great for them. They have a good first run of everything, but they need depth at defensive back, wide receiver, and O-line. I think adding him would be great. He's a local guy. He played at Western. He has the experience in a Canadian Football League setup. I think that's valuable because when you bring him playing NCAA players, they have to adapt to the CFL game. And I think that he has a lot of things you can build with, especially run blocking wise. And he may be a guy that's going to stay around, which I think is important for future growth.
Interesting. All right, Dino, can you hear us on there? Dino's on the line.
Yeah, I could hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We just can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I don't know why the image is not showing though, but
You just
I'm
gotta
not sure.
unmute your camera
Um,
or start your video on the Zoom. But
oh, there it
Dino,
is. Sorry, video part. Okay, I get what you're saying.
there you go.
Okay,
There's
there you are.
Dino. Welcome to the show, Dino. Dino covers the Edmonton Elks. Dino, thanks for being on the program as well.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. It's draft day. It's always a beautiful day, and even I remember like when it was a great quote when what's it called that movie Draft Day with
Yeah,
I can't remember drawing a blank where he makes that line saying, "Hey, you only get drafted once," right? So
is it Kevin Costner?
Kevin Costner, that was it when
Is
he
it?
plays the general manager for the Cleveland Browns. Great film, by the way, if you haven't seen it. It's really, really good.
Uh-huh. So, what's your take covering the Edmonton Elks? Before this draft gets kicking, what is your thoughts on who the Edmonton Elks could be looking at?
You know what? I totally agree with Aaron a lot because basically what he was explaining as well is basically a lot of the stuff that the Edmonton Elks need. I mean, unfortunately for them, let's face it, the last 2 years have not been kind. It's been extremely subpar. If you want to talk about the injury bug, up and down, no matter what it was. I mean, it got to the point where you're using basically offensive linemen that are third and fourth stringers. It got that bad. They definitely need to bulk up. I do like our defense though. With obviously with Jake Cheresna leading the way, he's going to need some help. I wouldn't mind some D line help, but especially in the secondary, they lack a lot of takeaways in the secondary. I think if just off the top of my head, I think collectively as a unit, they might have only had like 10 interceptions. That's not a lot, like by any stretch. And I think even the leaders, you might have like 2-3 players. I might only have like two each. That is it. Like it's so thinned out in the secondary. But yeah, to Aaron's credit as well. Yeah, let's face it. This is a league where bodies go down at will. So yeah, stockpile on your asset management protection.
So, with the second pick in the draft, I mean, under Chris Jones, he has this kind of knack for kind of turning a team around, and then within a year or two, then all of a sudden they're kind of on the scene. I mean, with the second pick in the draft, could you see a big turnaround from the Edmonton Elks this year?
I could see a big turnaround. I mean, mind you, it's like I'm pretty sure with a lot of the fans in Edmonton, their goals are going to be very realistic, right? I mean, for them to even maybe get a 7 to 8, maybe 9 win season, that'd be a huge thing. I think for them, like they cannot have another season having a 3-4 win season. That's just out of the equation. That's it. There needs to be some consistency across the board. I do like some players that could probably be game ready, but at the same time, I mean, just with last week with the NFL draft already done, you're always going to get those. Yeah, the free agencies are undrafted free agent players that will still do an NFL trial and stuff. But there is a few players, in this draft. There's going to be a lot of talent available as well. What I think the Elks should do is probably look more so for who they feel is going to be game ready and most likely not be going to, let's say, an NFL draft, like an undrafted free agency NFL draft tryout, right? I would say that should be their main focus. Use more of those picks later on, maybe later on in the draft, if just to get pretty much the CFL rights for that player, for that matter.
So, all right, we got fans and the chat room. So, if you got a question for our panel, hit it right now. Let's see. Mark and D-Rock are in. Mark Brennan's in the channel. D-Rock is in. Peyton says, Coach Sauter. All right. And then DeMarcus Cousin says, Coach. Oh, we got some players from out there, Coach, for you, Aaron?
Oh, yes, Mark, we do. I'm a high school football coach. I'm an offensive coordinator. And I let some of my guys know I'd be on this and trying to get some interest in the CFL. I think overall, the more people that have eyes on the CFL, the better it is for all of us, including the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
So you as a coach in high school, what is it like when all these kids, are they more like interested in the NFL game, or are you trying to convince them to like, hey, why don't you give the CFL a try?
Well, definitely interested in the NFL game. I think first choice for most high school football players, they are looking for the NFL. But they need to be aware that there's other avenues to professional football. The NFL is not the end all anymore. If you have talent and maybe you don't have the exposure some players have, it's a good chance to make a living for yourself and really make a great career that may not be in the spotlight, but gives you a chance to play the game you love in front of people who want to watch.
Yeah, I mean, there is more to life than just the NFL, that's for sure. So if you've got a question for our panel, talking about the Elks, talking about the Tiger Cats, I got my Hamilton Tiger Cats hat on right now. Gannon says, let's go Cats. We haven't had any draft picks just yet. Taking a look at Marshall Ferguson's draft, kind of how he kind of has his mock draft. He's got round one. He's got Jared Wayne, a receiver from Pitt, as going number one. Edmonton Elks at number two. He's got Lawal Uaka, a defensive lineman from TCU, 6'5", 271 pounds. That's a big boy. Saskatchewan at number three. He's got Dante Bull, an offensive lineman, Fresno State. Calgary Stampeders at four. He's got Jonathan Sutherland, a DB out of Penn State. Montreal, he's got Francis Beamy, a defensive lineman from southern Utah. Hamilton Tiger Cats, our Hamilton Tiger Cats. Cole Tucker, receiver from northern Illinois. Anything on Cole Tucker, Aaron? You know anything about him?
He's a solid receiver. As an NCAA guy, my concern would be, can we get him on the active roster? So definitely a talented receiver. Could come out and make an impact for the team. So I think on paper, looks like a great fit. But the question in my mind is, can they get him onto the roster? And in a first-round pick, personally, I'd like to see a Tiger Cats pick up a player they can use right now, or at least build into a guy that they know will be dependable, and then take some shots later in the draft. But he would not be a bad player for him to get. They just have to work hard to get him onto the roster, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the problems with, when it comes to the CFL draft and the NFL draft. It's like the guys are picked and they could make an impact right away. In the CFL, they kind of pick some guys and then they might not even play in the league for a couple of years, or they might not play at all. Let's
Can I add one piece?
Yeah, sure.
Looking at the Tiger Cats depth chart, you see it could go a lot of ways, because I don't see them any immediate needs at this moment. They need to build depth at the defensive back and the offensive line positions. They have pretty deep group at wide receiver, but do they have playmakers? So I could see them going defensive back, wide receiver, or offensive line, but they need to get a guy that can get on to a roster, from this first round. And later in the draft, they have several picks at the end of the draft. I think take some shots with the guys there and hope you can get them on, maybe if not now, more of a futures type draft later on.
What is the wide receiver group looking like now? I mean, there's Tim White is on there. I think Braden Allison is on there. So who are some of these guys as far as the depth chart for the Hamilton Tiger Cats wide receiver core?
Well, they have, like you said, Tim White coming back. What I see on the depth chart are a lot of role player type players, because they let a few guys go. Stephen Dunbar Jr., in my opinion, was a big loss. It'd be nice to get someone in to replace a playmaker, but once again, can you get that off the draft, the CFL draft? And I think that will be a challenge. Tyler Ternowski is a national receiver. If you give me just a moment, I'm going to hold it up right in front of me.
I'm looking at we've got let's see here.
I got it up. So Tim White, great player last year, made a lot of huge plays. Anthony Johnson started emerging as a playmaker. Tyler Ternowski, consistent guy. He's a national player. Brandon Allison, currently is listed as IR. I think that's one criticism I've had of their receiver group, is that they spend a lot of time on the IR. And so you need a deeper position group there, because if you're going to be missing guys throughout the season, which wide receiver, defensive back, and offensive line are hot spots for getting injuries, you need as many guys as you can get. So I could see them picking the wide receiver, especially a talented one. They just got to make sure they pick someone that I think they can get on the field. Because if you're trying to pick someone to boost your group and they don't get them on the field, what have you accomplished? That's my question.
Yeah. So Dino, Edmonton, they got number 2. They got this defensive lineman from TCU. Do you know anything about him?
I know some of them. I did see some of him when he was playing some college football. I do like the guy, but I'm actually going to go with I like that Fresno State right tackle, Bull. I like him a lot. I really hope that they actually go that route, set the tone with building up the offensive line. And then from there, yeah, let's worry about more on the defensive side. I'm not saying that, they won't pick a wide receiver, but I'd really like to boost up the offensive line first just to help out. You got to figure, Martez Ivy did some good things and no one thought anything of him. He was also getting injured a lot as well, but he also came into relief for a lot of injuries too. Mark Corti was bounced around from center to right guard to left guard. There is some pieces in place and stability, but I'd really like to beef up that offensive line a bit more.
I mean, for me, when it comes to a CFL draft and based the way the league is kind of structured with, some of these picks not even playing in the season, I would always go for offensive linemen. In any league, whether it's the XFL, even the NFL, college football, offensive lineman is critical. And, unless you're, Ottawa and you think you're ready for the championship, to get a wide receiver, picking a wide receiver, for example, with the number 1 pick over offensive lineman. I know it's not the sexy thing that people want to see. But I guess, Dino, what's your take on where the Red Blacks should go with the first pick?
I think for the Red Blacks, I think they should probably shoot for some more offense. You got to figure. If if it wasn't for the injury to Jeremiah Masoli, that team could have easily been a playoff team. Everyone knows that. They've always had a solid defense. They're always in there. If anything, their defense kept them in there for a good part of the season as well. But the wheels fell off. Offense couldn't put up any points. And let's face it, I'll go out and say it. I think Molden's probably going to be the sack leader this year. He'll probably be even getting close. Don't be surprised if he hits close to 20 sacks. That dude is a machine. And Ottawa is extremely lucky to get that guy. He could probably be maybe even defensive player of the year. I do like their defense. You still have Jared Baltimore there. Still a great guy in the secondary. He's always been money in the bank. I do feel that, yeah, you know what, maybe start going out with a couple of wide receivers, maybe even help at the running back position as well. I would say probably if I'm Ottawa, I'd go those two.
And we heard, is Jeremiah Mazzoli ready to rock and roll, or is he still think he's going to be ready? Have you heard, any of you guys heard anything about him for training camp?
I've never heard anything as far as then again, there hardly been anything about any talks about it anyways. It was just, the injury for the whole season and he was missed the whole season, but not so much. But, if he's ready to go, does he make mistakes? Yeah, but I just think that, he's obviously a lot better than, when you had Nick Arbuckle there, that's for sure, right? Arbuckle was a really, really bad, anyone could attest to it, even in Edmonton. That's why they shipped him out.
All right. Let's see here. So let's get some fan reaction here in the chat room. Robert says, when do the Canadians get drafted? You guys want to take a shot on that one?
See, that'd be interesting though. Canadians meaning let's say, are we going with anybody that's representing a Canadian university or?
Yeah, that's just a good question. I'm not really sure.
I'd probably say, let me see.
We got Braden says, while you're thinking about that, he says Dante Bull, easily first overall. Let's go. Rookie _X4. So I love the CFL, but I'm trying to pick a team to root for. Which team should I root for? Aaron, what team should he root for?
Well, this would be a good year to root for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They spent the offseason loading their roster on defense and offense. I think they came off the two back-to-back, the back-to-back Grey Cup losses. I was expecting to make the next step and win, and then the turnover machine happened on offense. So I think they're motivated to get back to it. So if I was picking a team as a first-timer in the CFL, I would pick Hamilton Tiger Cats this year.
Yeah, and you can't pick the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That's just like picking the New England Patriots. They've won too much, so you're not that is off limits, even though they didn't win last year. But they're still off limits. So just want to point that out. You can't pick them, but I would say Hamilton. That's my team as well. D Rock says Red Blacks are up and coming. New coach and Greta fan base. Devin says coach. Dallas says Awal is an Edmonton kid. Start at Harry and Analia. Let's see here. Ray says I'm assistant coach in the U14 Peterborough. We've had Brandon Calvert from the Argos come out and help coach for a night. Jared Wayne showed up a few weeks ago to visit all the U teams. That's pretty cool. All right, so we get into the first pick here. We're waiting. All right. The
Dante
first
Bull
pick.
went to Ottawa.
There we go. So Dante Bull, Ottawa, 6'6", 324 pounds. That is a big dude. Again,
He is one big dude.
I mean, if I can remember a time when offensive linemen were like 270. So, but 6'6", 324. Is this guy definitely 100% playing in the CFL this season? What do you guys think?
I think he's going to do a shot at an NFL camp first. I mean, if all goes well, obviously, I'm not saying it's not a bad move, for Ottawa, but I'm pretty sure he's going to do an undrafted free agency tryout. And then from there, if he doesn't get selected, then yeah, I mean, he might not report to camp right away just because of the timing of everything. But if anything, it might be, I would say, let's say if all goes well for Ottawa, maybe he shows up maybe 3 weeks before the first preseason, let's say. Because I have a feeling if that's the case, he might be doing a couple of stints here or there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't teach size. Aaron, what's your thoughts on him as the first overall pick?
I think he's a really good prospect. What concerns me about him is the end of the season at Fresno State on with a broken leg. And with his size, a broken leg can be really tough to heal from. And, the Red Blacks need protection for Jeremiah Mazzoli. Good player, injury prone, needs protection. And they need Dante Bull to get healthy. If he comes out too early and the leg is still bothering him and he re-injures it, you may lose him for the season. So I think that they'd be somewhat conservative with him, assess where he's at with the leg, and make sure he's healthy, because that's a position group that tends to have a lot of attrition during the CFL season. He's already coming in off a major injury.
Yeah. All right, Dino, your team is number 2.
Yep, they're up next. Yeah.
Edmonton Elks. Now with Bull off the board, who are you thinking?
You know what? I there's also one I might look at the 3rd or 4th round. There is a safety that I like out of University of Alberta that I came across in one of my reads, one of my writings. I would still save that a bit later. I think if anything, he might be a guy that might be game ready and also up to the Edmonton Elks needs, and they might even use him as a territorial pick eventually. But I would still probably look for an offensive lineman still going for this one here. I just want a lot of protection for whoever's going to be taking the snaps. And who knows? I mean, it might be Taylor Cornelius' team all the way through, or you never know. As injuries go down, Trey Ford comes in. And yeah, he's the future, but you don't want to get your quarterbacks dinged up too much either, right?
Yeah. I mean, the next one on Marshall Ferguson's board is all the way down Philip Grahovac.
Oh, the Western University, yeah.
Yeah, he's got him down at the 12th pick in the draft, all the way in round 2. So before we find out who is going to get selected by the Elks, what's your thought about the quarterback situation there? And
you know what, the thing is, I don't think it's really like a controversy one bit. I mean, Trey Ford knew that, when he's getting drafted, that he's gonna have to fight his way into the lineup. Look, in a perfect world, everyone thought Arbuckle was going to be great. It didn't work. It just went from bad to worse to just flat out ugly. He might have had what? I think, man, if I'm not mistaken, he might have had, I think, only like 2 touchdown passes, maybe 3, like max 4. I know that. But he was already at 9-10 picks already, right? I mean, it just didn't fit. It was odd. Like I'll compare it to similar to when when the Argonauts made the trade to get the rights for James Franklin. He was what, I think 11-1 when Mike Riley was the starting quarterback in Edmonton, and 11-1 with games started due to injury to Riley and stuff. He looked good. I think he had some like 12 touchdowns and like 2 picks, and then it was just a complete opposite when he came to the Argonauts. Right? That's just the way I see what happened to Arbuckle. Had some good stuff in Calgary. It just didn't transition to Edmonton. But with Trey Ford, I mean, look, he's got all the tools to be something very, very special in this league. But at the same time, you never know. He might also jump ship after a few reps. And let's just say he has a very, very good year due to, unfortunately, let's say if it is an injury to Taylor Cornelius. And you never know. He might do what Nathan Rourke did, right? He might jump ship and do an NFL shot, and good on him. I mean, he does have what I love about what the NFL has done now. Let's face it. I mean, I love the fact that they're really following a CFL style offense, right? I mean, it's very quarterback driven where it's dual threat. It's very, very similar to CFL style offense now.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. It used to drive me nuts, especially as a fantasy football guy, which we do have fantasy football. You'll be able to play CFL fantasy football at newshubfantasy.com. We have a commercial for that coming up here in a little bit. But it made me laugh is every time they would pull like the main starting quarterback out, and then they would put in the backup quarterback, and he would run it in. And then if you notice one of the teams that made it to the Super Bowl, they didn't pull the quarterback, but those little sneaks, man, on your Philadelphia Eagles, I am like, that is a straight up CFL move right there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the way I look at it too with, I mean, the Eagles, you got to figure, right? I mean, there's a lot of respect. Let's just say, for example, like, we look with Hamilton, right? It's built steel tough. It's a working class city, and Philadelphia is no further, not that far off as well with that mentality. The fans demand it, right? They demand tough, honest football. Like, even if you struggle, and sure, it is a tough place to play in, but the one thing they care about the most is that you put everything on that field, right? Just like it is with a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, let's say, right? Same thing with, any of the blue collared cities in the CFL for that matter, right? Edmonton, right? That is probably the bare minimum that when you put on that uniform, we need you to put 100% of your effort on there, right? And hey, you're going to win, you're going to lose. But either way, that's really what they care about the most.
Yeah, and that worked. And now everybody else is kind of copying that one. And I always see that. I'm always, all right, that's a CFL move right there.
So right now, the Elks just picked up linebacker, University of Montreal, Michel Brorique.
All right, we're waiting for that to pop up on the screen. Let's switch to, all right, there he is. Michel Brorique, Montreal linebacker. All right, Dino, what's your take on this guy?
Well, the good thing about this is that he's definitely going to help out, the linebacking core. Trying to blank now. What's the fellow that I'm looking at? Actually did some very, very good things. He also missed quite a few games last year as well. But Adam Corner was a very good one. And let's not forget Enoch McConzo, who they drafted last year, is going to get some more reps. He was banged up quite a bit. He played a lot of special teams, but he still showed a lot of stuff, right? This is going to be a good compliment for Adam Corner, for sure. Again, let's just see what he does in camp. Hopefully, he could still make the cut. The worst case, and it's to me probably one of the most important things for development, is he'll probably be playing some special teams, right? Special teams is a beautiful thing. I mean, that's the one part of the game where if you want to really work yourself onto a roster, you make plays on special teams. Believe me, you're going to be starting in a few weeks.
Hey, Aaron, I mean, as a high school coach, how important is special teams for guys getting in?
Special teams are huge, and having guys who are able to come out and contribute, both either on offense or defense and special teams, it multiplies their value. And just what pops out to me about Brodique is he comes from Montreal, he's from U Sports. He's played Canadian football. He has experience. It'll be limited transition time. And he has a long body. As a linebacker in the CFL, if you have a long body, you have a chance to be really good in coverage. And with the knowledge of playing Canadian football, that can't be overstated. Because if you pick up someone who's played NCAA football, they're going to have to transition. And sometimes that's a quick transition, and sometimes it's not. I think Broderick's experience into a Canadian style football and his length are two huge advantages.
Uh, And then, so hey, make sure if you're enjoying the stream here from your friends from CFL News Hub, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. We got to get this up to 50 likes, so that's the goal. Smash the like button. Make sure that you're, caught up to date. We got all these experts here. That we're the only CFL site that I know that has a reporter dedicated to that team year round. Dino's writing for us for the Edmonton Elks. Aaron's writing for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I mean, every move you could think of. If you're a super fan, or even if you're just a little interested in learning more about the CFL, come check us out, CFL News Hub, and subscribe, and make sure you like the video as well. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Dino, about the Edmonton Elks picking a linebacker, Chris Jones, a defensive guy. Does this mean that we could have a heavy draft on the defensive side as he tries to kind of right the ship? He's like, all right, I'm going to double and triple down on defense.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, let's face it. I mean, it is one of those things where, I mean, let's face it. When you look at, let's say, the Elks last year, and even more than the year before, the man games lost were just collectively were just absolutely horrific. I don't care how much talent you had on that field. They were just so beat up that when you're using a third, fourth stringer, or basically just picking up somebody off free agency just out of desperation just to fill in a roster spot. I mean, it got so bad where I don't even know, like, I mean, like, even when I was like waiting for the depth charts to come out, it was like, I don't even know who's really left on his team anymore. And good for him for loading up on the defense. You know, you want to set a tone. They were very, very bad in stopping the run. I mean, anytime you play the Elks, I mean, that was almost a given that they're going to give up 100 plus yards. So, yeah, load up on the defense. I like to see him if that's the case, and we're not going to go with the offensive line, and let's start retooling some of the secondary as well. I do like what Scott Hutter did last year for what now he's going to be entering his second year. He did a lot of big things for a team that, you know, was pretty much depleted. My only big question, though, is that, you know, with Aaron Grimes, who's always been a cornerstone, is he going to be fit and ready to play, though, this year, right? Because he was supposed to be injured in, like, for the first 6 weeks. Then it kept on getting extended. It got to the point where he just didn't play at all. So, yeah, that'd be interesting to see going on forward to load up on the defense, and especially with Aaron Grimes. I would like to see whether or not he's going to be playing or not.
Well, one of the great things about the CFL, and wow, I'm all blurry. There we go. One of the great things about the CFL, one of the frustrating things about the CFL is 1 year, I mean, the team could be garbage, and the next year completely turns it around. We got our next pick on the board. I'll get to that thought in a second. Lake Corte Moore, a defensive lineman, 6'5", 227 from UBC. Aaron, any news on Lake joining the Saskatchewan Roughriders? You know anything about him?
Well, everything I knew about the Rough Riders coming into the draft is they needed offensive line and defensive linemen. And I think they were counting on taking Dante Bull from everything I had heard coming into the draft. So with him taken first, I think they were put in a position. We need to take the most valuable lineman available. And like Cordy Moore has performed well once again. It's a U Sports guy, a guy who has experience in the Canadian game, a big guy, not heavy. So he's a little undersized in terms of his body weight, but could grow into being a really nice CFL defensive lineman. I feel like this pick would be their second pick had they had Dante Bull available, but they need to bulk up on both lines. They need guys who can rush the passer and make something happen. And I think Corday Moore could be very good at that.
Yeah, we got Corday Moore on Marshall Ferguson. He had him picked as 8th he wanted to be picked by Winnipeg. But again, yeah, once stuff starts changing at the top of the draft, that kind of throws everything off. I mean, Saskatchewan. I mean, I really thought that they were going to be the team, one of the top teams in the league, and then everything happened. I mean, there was injuries. The fans turned on the quarterback, and now he's out of town. Cody Fajardo is out. I was super high on Cody Fajardo. I mean, for fantasy, for DFS. Aaron, what happened with Saskatchewan this past year?
Honestly, I watched most of their games, and it felt like things really fell apart when they played Ottawa, and they essentially took out Jeremiah Mazzoli, and their defensive lineman celebrated that and got suspended. I think that really divided their team. So they had a lot of potential. They
Interesting.
came out looking pretty good, but as soon as that happened, they fell apart quickly, and that created a lot of issues. Up to now, you lost major personnel and you've lost coaches. They may have been moving in the right direction, but it feels like they have to reset now. I look back at that moment. That was that divisive situation where they really kind of turned into a perception of a dirty team. And it's hard to overcome that. It's hard to get guys who want to come play when you have that negative perception.
Yeah, that guy actually got signed by the USFL. I can't remember his name. Chat room.
Garrett Marino, I think his name was.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So
But
he's in the USFL, and I haven't heard anything about him. Granted, they've only have they're in week 3 going into week 4, but I haven't heard anything about him getting in trouble, or even if he's on a roster. I have to double check that.
yeah, ever since he got released, I haven't heard too much about it. And yeah, then signing with the United States Football League. But yeah, Aaron, I cannot agree more. I mean, that was probably a paradigm shift for that team. And yeah, the thing that I found pretty disturbing was that even I remember like seeing that game is that when he was getting ejected, he's walking towards a locker room, and like I don't know, it was kind of odd because I mean, Saskatchewan fans, to my knowledge, are not like this, but like they were chanting for that dirty hit. Like it made no sense. I mean, like really, I mean, I just found that pretty disturbing on how they were on Garrett Marino's side on, like, hey, good play, even though you got ejected, good play, like one of those kind of mentality things, right? That really took me off guard on that one.
And they had a point. The disturbing thing is that he moves on to a different league while Saskatchewan has to completely rebuild their franchise now. I think that's difficult to take if you're a fan of the Rough Riders.
Yeah, because they seemed like they were going to be one of the top teams, and then just totally flaked. Do you guys see that Saskatchewan bounces back this year, and is kind of, I mean, they got a new quarterback, new life with this franchise, or is it going to be still downhill for them?
I think they'll have a decent season. I don't think they're going to be having like a horrific season. Mind you, okay, we could probably say in the West right now. I mean, let's face it. I mean, let's just say if Vernon Adams struggles in BC, right?
Yeah.
They still have a heck of a team. Calgary, we know they're always there. They just know how to make the playoffs. So I'm already penciling them in no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. With the Calgary Stampeders. I'm not saying BC won't make it, but hey, struggles will happen. With Saskatchewan, I think maybe realistically, they might be a 9-win team. Maybe. That's not to say they can't hit 10, 11, 12, 13 wins, but realistically, I think they'll be maybe a 9-9 team. I still think they'll squeak in there. But the second half of last season, they just couldn't close out any games. I mean, they could be up by 10 points, and before they lost the game by 17. Right? I mean, they really have to close out games. That's what they really have to focus on.
All right, so speaking of Calgary, Calgary is up next. They have slotted here is Jonathan Sutherland, DB from Penn State. That's what Marshall Ferguson has. How is Calgary going to survive without Bo Levi Mitchell as their quarterback, even though he didn't really play last year? But now the aura of him is kind of gone. Aaron, how do you think the Stamps fare this season?
I believe one reason Bo Levi Mitchell was available was because they had already moved on, and they're betting on Jake Mayer to lead them in the future. They bulked up on their offensive line, I think, to protect him and give him a chance to be successful. And they're willing to bet on him. He played well last year, and his success led to the move to allow Bo Levi Mitchell to move and eventually end up with the Tiger Cats.
Do you think Jake Mayer is a top 5 CFL quarterback? I mean, would you put him up there?
I would put him up there, yeah, no doubt. But the question is going to be this now, unfortunately, as bodies go down, let's say, I I'm not familiar about, who the backup's going to be now kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be another issue kind of thing that, let's just say if he does get injured, who's going to be able to take over the reins, let's say, right? But I think he's a top 5 quarterback. I mean, he's been in the league for a little bit now. He got his feet wet, and it's safe to say that he's done a lot of good things in relief of Bo Levi for that time, right?
Yeah.
I like him. I think he's gonna have a great career. But yeah, the worry spectrum is the injury bug. And once your top quarterback goes down, who's going to be ready now to take a spot and at least do a decent job to put yourself in a good position to win games?
Well, Calgary has got the 4th pick via the trade with Hamilton Tiger Cats, moving Hamilton. I guess they flip spots, and Hamilton's now at 6. Looks like Marshall's looking that they're going with a DB.
Cole Tucker.
Did they pick? All right, Cole Tucker,
yeah.
Northern Illinois
guy, yeah.
Wide receiver, 6'2", 195. Cole Tucker was on the list at still. I mean, the number 1 guy was Jarrett Wayne. He had him as number 1. Cole Tucker, that he had penciled into Hamilton. So what do you think, Aaron, of this guy, Cole Tucker, as basically the first wide receiver taken off the board?
Well, as I said earlier, he's a solid playmaker, athletic receiver, does the little things you want to do, will block in space, will make tough catches. I think he'd be a guy who can contribute on special teams. So all around good pick. The concern is going to be, can you get him into camp? And I think it's going to take Calgary some effort to get him to sign on. And if they can get him in, he could grow into a really good player for them. But they need to make sure they secure him first.
Mm.
You know what's interesting about this move, though? Now that I think of it, that it's Northern Illinois. There's something about that school because I mean, there's been a lot of CFL talent or even Canadian-born players that, for some reason, are committing to that program. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, you look at what I think Juwan Brescison. I think he might have came out of Northern Illinois as well. There's been a few in the last like 4 or 5 years easily. That's been kind of like the go-to school to draft CFL talent.
Interesting. All right, let's get into the chat room. What do you think, chat room, so far? You got your first pick here. Let's see here. Let's see. We've got D Hunt said he's on Michigan. He's a starting DT. Let's see. Injuries and O-line play slowed the Riders down. Marino gets suspended and released. Injuries for significant time missed. Lanier, Robertson, Leonard, Jeremy Clark, plus Duke Williams debacle. He's got there talking about the Riders' season going forward. But now maybe things will change. So let's see the board. We're at the 4th pick. We're already 37 minutes into the draft, and we only got 4 picks. I assume things kind of speed up a little bit once we get past the first round. But we've got the Montreal Alouettes at 5. My and Aaron's Hamilton Tiger Cats at number 6 via the trade with Calgary. Then you have Montreal again via their trade with BC. They're at number 7. Winnipeg Blue Bombers are at 8. And then the BC Lions via their trade with Toronto at number 9. So Toronto Argonauts, the big Grey Cup champions, don't have a pick until the 16th pick in the draft. So Montreal has got 2 picks. Dino, what do you think Montreal is going to do with these 2 picks?
With Montreal for their needs, I mean, the thing is this. I mean, it's unfortunate that in the CFL you don't really get quarterbacks drafted, right? Which kind of sucks, right? I mean, it's one of those things where, and I get it. I mean, for a lot of the kids or whatever that play at Canadian universities, and again, it's few and far between that you'll get picked as a quarterback. I could actually see maybe some help in the secondary, along with maybe a linebacker. I could see some of their needs. I'm not sure. I can't remember though. Is Patrick Level still part of that team, or did he leave or whatever? Can't remember if he's still part of that squad. But if that's the case, I mean, they're going to need that anchor that could anchor that defense and break up passes and, maybe the odd safety blitz kind of thing.
let's see. I'm pulling up their roster now, just to kind of try to see.
Or did he go to Ottawa? I can't remember if he left Montreal or Ottawa to Montreal. I can't remember. There was I can't remember where he went though.
Yeah, I don't see the name on here.
But mind you, I will say this though: Danny Machocha is very good for finding talent. Like, I mean, he is a whiz though when it comes to finding unproven talent as well. And what's interesting about him is that he'll still throw a curveball and probably maybe like draft somebody sooner rather than later. If there's going to be a team, I will say this though: if there's going to be a team that is going to probably draft players that want to be game ready now or play now, I think Montreal might be that team to do it. I don't think they're going to look at players that are going to be that will be like, let's say are going to go to an NFL camp first. They're going to want someone to start right away or be in uniform on the first day of training camp.
Well, there was a lot of drama in the offseason with Montreal. Aaron, what was your kind of take on all the dramas that transpired in Montreal this offseason?
Well, I think it's unfortunate that a team with a rich history like the Alouettes are having the ownership issues they have. And I think the move they finally made to get someone to come in and be a solid owner that's committed to the franchise, hopefully that's the outcome. That's what they need. I believe from what I've seen, Montreal as a city they want to commit to the team. They want to support the team, but there's so much instability. I think it's hard to attach yourself to it, and I think that really showed out. When they had the owner switch, and the owner switch didn't go as smoothly as they had liked. I think because of the media situation, and I think they need to calm down and play football. They need things to settle in and play football because when the team they have a good team. My biggest thing, I think they need linebackers and DBs. They're loaded on offense for personnel. They have a lot of people on offense. I think the ownership needs to become stable. There's always a threat in the CFL from past experience of Montreal in particular that what if the ownership doesn't settle and the team moves somewhere? I think that's in the back of people's heads because it's happened before. I think they need to settle and know that the community needs to know they're committed to being in Montreal and putting a good product on the field.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the things that was interesting in the conversation. I didn't see it anywhere when it came to the move of ownership. It wasn't like the team was sold for any money. It wasn't like, oh, okay, they sold it for $1 million or $10 million or, you know what I mean? Like that was never talked about. It was just like, hey, here's a new rich guy owner. I mean, hopefully, he's kind of like the owner of the BC Lions, where he's, been a big positive impact. Amar Doman, a big impact, and having him as part of the league has been huge. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see Doman down the road at some point, potentially being a commissioner or something like that. I mean, I don't know if they've ever done an owner being commissioner, but I mean, he's certainly, he's been great for the league, and we'll see if this new ownership. And it kind of came out of nowhere, did it not? I mean, I was kind of heard some things towards the end of the season. Next thing you know, it was like Montreal is having all sorts of problems, and then all of a sudden they had new ownership. I mean, now that Randy Ambrosie's kind of got that behind him, do you think now he can kind of focus on one of the things that I think they should focus on? The whole chit chatter about changing the rule, like that's just dumb. That's never going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. But I mean, definitely adding another team, at least for the schedule, just making it even. I mean, what do you got? What do you guys take on expansion?
I'm all for it. I mean, if they could somehow get that Halifax thing done, and even then, like let's just say if they use Moncton for a bit, considering that's probably what I think they have like a 10 or 15,000 seat stadium. They built that when they had the Canada Games, maybe about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. With that said, I mean, like this is long overdue. If hopefully Anthony LeBlanc and company, he obviously knows some people in high places. They're going to need some more investors. I know he was working with the Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Coyotes, in the NHL for about, I don't know, I think like 10, 15 years ago. So I'm pretty sure he could find some investment somewhere. I also know that at one point that Canadian musician, what was his name? Tom Cochrane was interested in being a small minority owner. this is gonna be like it's gonna happen sooner rather than later, right? Like, can you imagine? Like, let's just say right now you could actually have, let's say, in a Labor Day game, which obviously, you're gonna have the Battle of Alberta. Stamps, Alex go at it. The great QEW series with the Ticats articles that hate, despise each other like there's no tomorrow. And then obviously, yeah, you're gonna have the Banjo Bowl with, and such with the return game with Saskatchewan and Winnipeg respectively. You could have literally an East Coast West Coast Labor Day game, right? I mean that'd be amazing, right? Where one day BC goes to Halifax and vice versa, right? What I like to see also is maybe like a natural rivalry for Montreal. I remember as a kid that when the Montreal Canadiens would play against the Quebec Nordiques, those were absolute wars on ice. Like you just even like warming up your goalie, they'd be like a scrap breaking out, right? I mean, just it was so intense. If you were to grab, let's say, Quebec to have an expansion team and let them have a Labor Day game against Montreal, there's going to be a lot of fireworks, man. Let's just say that, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the league. I mean, I think compared to coming from the post-COVID world to now, it seems to be a lot more a sure footing. I mean, I love the fact that they standardized the schedule. I'm not super enthusiastic about this CBS Sports thing, at least in the United States. I hope, I mean, they kind of put it over as like, oh, this great sports thing. I mean, if you were to rate the sports channels in the U.S., I mean, clearly ESPN is number one. Fox would be number two. I mean, NBC got rid of their sports network, and then CBS is kind of their final one. But if they could get a CFL game on the CBS network, which there was no talk of that, but at least getting promotion on the CFL. I mean, the problem with ESPN having the CFL games, at least in the U.S., was that there was just no promotion. It was just the games on. All right, we got our fifth pick in the draft. Jonathan Sutherland, linebacker, 5'11", 198, from Penn State. Aaron, what is your thoughts on Jonathan Sutherland?
I think it's a great pickup. They definitely need help at linebacker. He's played in CFL football. He played at Penn State in the Big Ten. So in terms of playing ability, I'm sure he's bringing a ton of talent. They need linebacker depth. They need linebackers and playmakers there. And he may be a great addition. Like I said, on offense, they're loaded with players. So defensively, especially linebacker and DBs, they needed some help. And he may be able to have a chance to come in and jump right in and add to the team.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just seeing a clip right now of him running the 40, and this Sutherland guy definitely has wheels, that's for sure.
And one of the things about the difference between the NFL and CFL is in terms of giving guys an opportunity. Their guys are kind of built better for the CFL game versus the NFL game. I mean, is this a guy that's kind of built better for the CFL game? I mean, he's 5'11", he's 198, and he's not a huge guy to clog the middle. Potentially could play safety in the future. I mean, what do you think about him, Aaron, as far as, a guy that you think he's going to jump into the CFL, or do you think he's going to get some looks from NFL camps first?
I believe his height he could get looks from NFL camps as an undrafted free agent, but I believe he would probably get filtered out. Mm-hmm. The CFL game, you need to be able to run, you need to be able to cover a lot of distance in a larger field. And I think the fact he's a fast player and maybe not the tallest and biggest guy is going to make him a great fit for the CFL.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at his stats, he's 5'11", 198. Cole Tucker is 6'2", 195. So, I mean, even just look, if you took the LB out, you'd be like, oh, he's probably a pretty decent wide receiver. No, playing linebacker. So I think he could be somebody that, again, and that's the beauty of having these different, the difference between the CFL and the NFL and the 4-down game. At least with the CFL, wider field, different rules, gives an opportunity for different style of players to kind of get an opportunity to play professional ball. And that's kind of what it's all about. All right, Aaron, the pick 6, the Hamilton Tiger Cats are on the clock based off of all these guys that have been selected. Who is your thoughts coming into Hamilton at number 6?
I'd love to see him pick up Philip Groho back. I would love to see that. I think that'd be a smart decision for the future. It's a guy that knows how to play Canadian football. You can grow into what you need him to be. A great run blocker already. You got to develop his pass blocking skills. But I can see him picking a wide receiver up to try and give more weapons to Bo Levi Mitchell. When I was breaking down their pre-draft, I was on the fence. To me, an offensive lineman is one of the most valuable pieces you can have in the CFL. You can get from the first round of the draft, but they definitely need guys who can make plays. I'm not sure if I see a guy right now I would count on, which is why I'm pulling hard for offensive line. And I think Philip Grohovac is the next best guy out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, Marshall has Jared Wayne at number 1 overall pick as a wide receiver. So it's interesting, how is this pick going to suck up to Bo Levi Mitchell? I mean, the fans would be like, "Hey, cool, we want a wide receiver," and really somebody that was penciled in to be number 1 drops to number 6. Is that a guy that they want to get excited about wide receiver? But maybe Bo's like, "Hey, man, I need protection. I'm getting older. I need to make sure that I'm not getting dinged around. So let's go offensive lineman at number 6." It'll be interesting to see where they do that. Aaron, answer me one question. I remember, so when I started covering the CFL a couple years ago, what was the deal with the number 1 overall pick? Was it the Burke? And he was a tight end or something? Do you
Or
remember
maybe
that?
Mark Chapman, the one that came out of Central Michigan, but didn't show up, and then was picked up by the Denver Broncos, but reported to them, but did not want to report to Hamilton. That one, you mean?
No, he was the number 1 overall pick. The Hamilton Tiger Cats took him, and he was a tight end. He's still.
Oh, Nikola Klacic.
No.
No?
This was like 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna look it up, but
because I know he yeah, because the only one I could think of as a tight end was was probably Nikola Klacic. That's he's had some stints with the NFL, but he came out of York University, and he played for the Cats, for a season or two.
I'm gonna look it up, and I saw his name, pop up, and I was like, "Oh my god, I have to find it. Where is that?" I'm telling you.
Was it what? About maybe 5-6 years ago?
No, I would say it was 2021 maybe.
2021.
All right, let's see. So we'll look that up here in a second. Let me while you guys look that up.
So the Ticats picked up a guy by the name of Dayton Black, offensive lineman, University of Saskatchewan. He's a big boy. He's 6'5", 298, from Brandon, Manitoba.
Let me see what the live stream. Do you know who I'm talking about on the stream? You guys look it up. Jake Burt. That's it. Brent.
Oh, okay.
Shirky's
Well,
got
that
it.
guy.
Jake Burt.
Okay.
That
he played
was
at
it.
a Boston college. And then I can't remember which NFL team he went to though. But and after that, I remember that. I think he was like a late acquisition though, if I'm not mistaken.
He was the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
And
I believe he played his college ball at Boston College.
Yeah, that was it. All right. Let's see here.
I have one point to add to that, and I can see them picking best available athlete. Picking up someone listed as a tight end. They currently don't use a tight end in their offense. So I could see them
over to slot back, if anything, right?
Oh, here you go. We got the pick came in, and it's an offensive lineman we didn't talk about. Dayton Black, Saskatchewan, offensive lineman, 6'6", 295, is the pick by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Aaron, what is your take? You want an offensive lineman, you got it. 6'6", dude, 295.
The big boy.
It was on my list, so that's in my mind, that's a good pickup. And you got to protect Bo Levi Mitchell. He's not a dual threat quarterback. You got to give him protection so he can get the ball to the weapons. So in my mind, great pickup between Dayton Black and Philip Grohovac. Philip Grohovac, great run blocker. Dayton Black, if they spend the time and develop him, could come in and be a good all-around offensive lineman for them and provide not only protection in the short term, but in the long term as well.
I mean, is he somebody that is he like a left tackle, a right tackle? He's a guard. Like where do you think they would slot him at?
Looking at the depth chart, it's hard to say. I think they're going to have to bring him in and work with him and see where he best fits, because they have, in my mind, looking at depth chart, they have a solid group of offensive linemen from the free agency. So I think they'd have time to come in and allow him to work into a position. They need depth, but they don't necessarily need a guy right now to fill a spot. So they could evaluate him and see where he fits in more of a CFL mindset. Let me take 1 second. So,
All right, we'll take a look. What's up, everybody in the chat room? Kevin's in the house. Kelvin's in the house. Kay in the house. I'm just CJ. Mechanical Ibidoob. D Hunt in the house. What's up, everybody? Make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow us on CFL News Hub. We've got all these great writers covering these teams. They know better than I do. Focused on the team, focused on getting your draft coverage, finding out who can be the guys. I mean, this is, you could pick one or two guys that just change your franchise in the draft. And that is why I think people love watching the draft on, whether it's the NFL draft or it's the NHL draft. I mean, no one cares about Major League Baseball draft because there's like 1,000 rounds of it. NBA draft, people love the draft. And that's why, because your team could absolutely change. Now, you might get not so exciting offensive linemen, but then all of a sudden your run game is better. And all of a sudden your quarterback doesn't get hurt because they can sling the ball all around the field. So we'll see. I like to pick. I'm with you, Aaron. If it's the first round in a CFL draft, I'm picking an offensive lineman because you can never go wrong with that. And then, maybe try to get playmakers later on. But I would always pick offensive lineman first. D Hunt says no depth, and Fajardo was forced to play on a bad knee that was not healthy. Plus Morrow and Hickson both rushed over 500 yards and missed serious amounts of games with Harris in town and multiple offensive lines. His signing in Hawken, more steadily offense coming out of the heartland. Talking about the riders there. All right, so our draft tracker. Next back on the list is the Montreal Alouettes via their trade with BC Lions. We're almost an hour in, and we have 7 picks. We're on the 7th pick. But, I mean, it's the first round. It's the fun round. I think it picks up pace once you start getting into the second round. We have 3 picks left. The Montreal Alouettes via trade with BC Lions. That happened on August 31st. Then you have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who, I mean, did either one of you guys think that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are not still in the title contention hunt?
I still think they're there. I mean, it's still the one thing I will say this, when you look at, let's say, I look at Wally Buono, and I think he's without a doubt, like, to me, I'd compare him to, let's say, with drawing a blank. What's that great 49ers coach?
Bill
in the
Walsh?
Montana era. Bill Walsh, exactly. Just absolutely phenomenal. Just a football mind. Through the draft, he just knows how to use certain players in certain positions and will always give the most playing time possible. So when I look at Kyle Walters, I see a bit of John Huffnagel in him, and I also see a bit of Wally Buono in him. And I see, a bit of that Bill Walsh. Kyle Walters, he's something, man. Like the talent that guy picks up, it's pretty damn remarkable. I mean, a lot of these players too, that when they go there, they could already be good, maybe great. And that's the one thing that I respect a lot, and a lot of Saskatchewan fans will hate it because obviously it's their rival. They set a standard right now in the CFL. They really did. And to do it on a tight budget, that's another thing. And the thing too is that they don't really have those long key injuries, right? They've been very, very blessed. You give them that. I mean, it does come down to luck as well. I still think Winnipeg is easily going to be the team to beat even going into this year.
Mm.
Their depth just shows that.
So Winnipeg is on the clock because the Montreal Alouettes select Lawal Ugak from Texas Christian defensive lineman, 6'5", 270. He was projected as going number 2 in the CFL draft to Edmonton. So he goes down. He is the second defensive lineman taken. So basically, we've got an offensive lineman with the first overall pick. We got a linebacker, defensive lineman, wide receiver, another linebacker, offensive lineman, defensive line. So that's it. Offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, wide receiver has gone in the draft. Get another defensive lineman. Again, Montreal, 2 picks, both defensive players. Aaron, any thoughts on Lawal Ugak, if I say that right or wrong?
He was one of 3 guys that they had identified as people they really desired drafting. So I think that's a huge win for them that he didn't go earlier. They need defensive line, linebacker, and DB help. They've addressed the linebacker position, and they addressed the defensive line. So it's just a matter of getting them in camp and having them adapt to the CFL game. Coming from Texas Christian, they came off a great season, great program. This is the guy they wanted to have. So now they got to integrate him in as quickly as they can and give him a chance to make plays for them.
So the guys on this list so far of the 7 picks, who is a guy that definitely is not going to be around? We talking about Dante Bull will not be around. He'll be on it. I mean, 6'6", 324 versus, 6'6", 295. Is there a guy that is definitely, you think, going to be plugged in? Any of these guys so far drafted?
See, the way, because right before they showed this pick, they went to a viewing room in like a fans viewing center at the TD Place Stadium in Ottawa, and Dante Bull was already present. So it's like you already knew, I guess, in advance. So generally, to me, that if you're already in that city, I think you're going to be playing in that city, like right off the bat. That's not to say you won't do an NFL camp, but I've noticed that in the past that when you show up to the draft party in the middle of like right now, I have a feeling that's already a penciled in lock. So just on that alone, I'm going to say Ottawa. Bull's going to play this year.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that would make sense. At this point, the NFL teams they've had their draft. They're already asking guys to come to rookie camps already. Even with the XFL season finishing, we're seeing names, and getting invites. You would think that this guy, any kind of offensive lineman, but maybe, that makes sense that he's already been there. So he might be signing with them, which would be great.
Anyone know the rules by any chance of like, for example, when you want to do your territorial pick, are you allowed to designate that right away, or when do you get to burn that pick? Let's say territorial picks. Anyone know?
No, I did see there are if you look in the second round, 17 and 18, there's territorial picks.
Okay, because I'm wondering if then if they're preset that way, or I imagine every team has at least 1 or 2 of them, like during a draft time or whatever, right?
Yeah, I see 2 so far. I only see 2 territorial picks for the whole draft.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I always want to, like, not that there's like a lot of readings about it, but like who gets like I have a feeling maybe it might be one of those things where maybe if a team sees a lot of talent, like let's just say I'll take Southern Ontario, so anything GTA obviously will be Argonauts territory, but that's not to say Hamilton can't tap into Mississauga, let's say, where it's pretty much the halfway point to Toronto. So, and that's not to say that that Toronto probably can't say, well, we want Kitchener Waterloo rights or whatever, right? I think for that, because when you have so many teams in that one area, that it's probably just going to be first come first serve, or who gets them first. But I always wanted to know, like, how that works out in general, and who gets to declare that territorial pick.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes for a good article. Let's see here. player selected as a territorial pick must have played his high school or college football in the team's territorial area and must also be eligible for the CFL draft. Team does not use their territorial pick. They lose the selection and do not receive any compensation.
Oh, okay. So it works that way.
CFL territorial pick is a way for teams to prioritize local talent and build connection with their fan base. Introduced in 1972. Under the rule, each team is allowed to select one player from their designated territorial area before the start of the regular draft.
Okay, so it's preset then. Okay, so that would be like in a way interesting thing though. Like, would you think that would probably use that in the way when you look at the National Football League, where they have compulsory picks? So generally, I believe if you lose like about 30% of your roster or more, you're guaranteed. I think after the fourth round, you're guaranteed at least maybe 3-4 bonus picks, let's say, but they're like fourth to seventh round. I think maybe they should even implement that in the CFL draft, where if you're a team that really lost a lot of the roster and free agency, like yeah, even though you're aggressive but you still haven't filled up your roster, I think you should be granted maybe a compulsory pick or two.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. Aaron, who do you think Winnipeg Blue Bombers are taking here with the 8th pick in the draft?
It's a tough call. They have, they're, as you mentioned, they were like the Patriots of the CFL. They have talent at every position. They use their talent well. They have a good culture. They don't have any striking weaknesses where they need to, definitely pick a guy. I think they're going to pick best available player. Probably a guy. I would predict a receiver or a defensive back that can help them both on special teams and on their side of the ball, so they can get a lot of mileage out of them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it looks like. Make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. As I always say, appreciate that. We're coming down to the end of the draft. Defensive lineman is what Marshall Ferguson has on his list here. Kelvin says, "Go Blue Bombers!" All right, they're your team. They still stacked. Still, you'd be hard pressed not to throw a couple bucks that they're going to win the Grey Cup this year. D Hunt says at some point Winnipeg's veterans mainstays will start to deplete. Bryant and Hardrick, I think the Twin Towers will slowly deteriorate. Speculation, but Rough Rider running backs hit 800 all-purpose yards. He's saying that in the chat. So let's go back to our draft tracker. All right, we did get a defensive lineman, Anthony Bennett out of Regina, defensive lineman, 6'3", 230, going to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Dino, any thoughts on Anthony Bennett?
Kind of funny though, because you look at Anthony Bennett again, who's going to be behind the radar anyways, but it's kind of odd where he's going to the rival team kind of thing, right? So here he is, playing in the prairies and in a good football culture in University of Regina, but now you're off to Winnipeg. With that said, and yeah, let's face it, I mean, that core defense is not going to be there all the way through. When you look at, let's say, Jackson Jeff Coates, who's the other defensive end? I'm drawing a blank right now. Jackson Jeff, and Willie Jefferson. To get a young defensive end like this, it's only going to add more depth. This is a good move for Winnipeg. There's no doubt, right? I mean, so again, this is just a typical Kyle Walters adding on to your talents with some heavy hitters that you already have on your team anyways. So this is a good move though. I think this is actually a really, really nice fit for Winnipeg.
Yeah, it looks like the defensive lineman was the spot. Marshall Ferguson had him at number 9 to the BC Lions. This is an older prospect due to his 5 years spent playing for North Atlantic University and 2 with the Regina Rams. He's played 7 years of college football. For real?
It's possible, yeah.
Anthony Bennett is more game ready than he appears with a slight frame at defensive end, but could be excellent depth pass rusher. Could also work special teams and learn linebacker as well. So is that a thing where guys have 7 years of college football?
I think what they're probably looking at is like, let's just say if you play junior college, they don't really consider it
Oh,
playing college football. I could be wrong, but I know like statistically, it's not really because you got to figure. There's also one I know like I know in Saskatchewan they also have like 8-man football, and I think it's in Texas as well. Like usually a lot of the junior colleges do that. Well, they'll play 8-man football, and especially if you go to a very very small school, junior colleges really don't give out scholarships. So you're
yeah,
basically paying tuition, and you make the cut, you make the cut. So I have a feeling maybe he played a couple of years in a junior college, like very very young, like let's say 18 and 19. Maybe he fast tracked his education, and then he's still eligible to play college football. And then from there, played a bit of NCAA, and then eventually finished off with in the Canadian universities.
yeah. Interesting. So BC Lions with the ninth pick via trade from Toronto. Uh, is Aaron, is Vernon Adams the answer there for BC? I mean, they lost basically a guy that was on the cusp of being a super. I mean, he was, if he didn't get hurt, Nathan Rourke, he potentially could have been the star of the CFL, and now he's in Jacksonville, and now BC Lions with Vernon Adams Jr. What do you think?
Well, I think Vernon Adams is capable of being a effective CFL quarterback, but they need to add a running game around him. He has a tendency to want to run the ball, and the problem with that is it puts you at risk of getting injured. I think losing Nathan Rourke was probably an emotional blow to BC
Hmm.
because that drew a lot of interest. I think Vernon Adams comes in, a solid CFL player. He needs time to develop. He needs weapons around him. I think he needs a running game. And losing James Butler to the Tiger Cats probably puts them in a weird spot. If they put the running game and passing game on Vernon Adams Jr., I think he's going to have a short season. So they need I think they need some meat in the running game to give him a chance to relax and focus on the passing game.
Well, I would even throw out, with the retirement of Brian Burnham. I mean, why not take a wide receiver here too? I mean, we still have the kind of number one overall Jarrett Wayne on the block as well. I mean, do you think they could go wide receiver with this?
I think they could. They need to get something around Vernon Adams to let him get comfortable as a passer. I think picking up a receiver would be huge. And with the guy who was predicted by some people to be the top pick, that's a safe pick. And it might give him a chance to let him focus on passing the ball and trusting his weapons versus feeling like he needs to put it on his back and make things happen. I think Dane Evans showed that it's tough to be a really good quarterback in the CFL if you're trying to carry the whole offense.
Yeah.
And I think he needs a guy that he can rely on as a playmaker. And with the top, predicted top receiver in the CFL draft sitting there, that could be a really good pick for him.
Yeah, I mean,
I cannot agree more. I mean, they
Uh-huh.
definitely should look more towards the offense. I totally agree with both you fellas.
I mean, losing Nathan Rourke was, I mean, and he's still the backup. It looks like he'll be the backup in Jacksonville, but didn't, we got the pick. A defensive lineman has been selected. Francis Beamy, Southern Utah, defensive lineman, 6'4", 250. I believe that name was on his list. Had him going at number 5. 5 years at Southern Utah. Beamy racked up 38.5 tackles behind the line of scrimmage and 13 sacks. He basically had him at Hamilton going 6th. Beamy's positional flexibility could make him a situal swingman and worth the 5th overall pick, but he goes all the way down to the BC Lions at number 9. So this is kind of interesting. Out of the 9 picks, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were defensive linemen. Is that something, Aaron, that surprises you at all?
No, I think traditionally in the CFL draft, you focus on lines of scrimmage and you try to find best available athletes after you solidify your line of scrimmage, unless there's an outstanding an obvious pick sitting out there, you're going to see teams want to build up an offensive line, defensive line, and then in free agency, the source for a lot of your skills players.
All right, so let's recap, and then we'll take a little commercial break, but we'll get you recap the first round. So Dante Bull of Fresno State is the offensive lineman, 6'6", 324, is taken by the first pick by the Ottawa Redblacks, and Michael Broderick from Montreal, linebacker, 6'3", 222. Lake Corday Moore, a defensive lineman, UBC. Cole Tucker, wide receiver at Northern Illinois, 6'2", 195. Jonathan Sutherland, a linebacker from Penn State, 5'11", 198. Dayton Black from Saskatchewan, another offensive lineman, 6'6", 298. And Lawal Uak, Texas Christian defensive lineman, 6'5", 270. Anthony Bennett, another defensive lineman, 6'3", 230. And like Aaron said, a lot of these teams are trying to solidify the line first. I'm surprised they didn't go for more offensive linemen, but I'm always surprised every year. Anthony Bennett, number 8 for Winnipeg Blue Bombers defensive lineman. And then Francis Binmi, Southern Utah defensive lineman, 6'4", 250. My friends, all right, we're going to take this little commercial break talking about fantasy football. If you're interested, if you're watching the CFL draft, you've got to be interested in DFS and especially fantasy football. We got the thing for you. We'll take a little break and then we'll be back with the second round right after this. Are you a fan of XFL, USFL, and CFL football? Get ready to embrace your inner general manager with NewsHubFantasy.com's fantasy football experience. NewsHubFantasy.com offers you an unparalleled fantasy football platform bringing together fans of the XFL, USFL, and CFL football leagues. Compete in season-long fantasy with leagues up to 6 players. You can create your own for friends, or you can join an existing league. Draft your ideal team with our 7 active roster spots, including a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, flex, tight end, kicker, plus 3 bench spots. Show off your football knowledge and strategy and dominate your league. Our user-friendly interface makes it easy to manage with your team and get the latest news in your XFL or USFL or CFL leagues on the go. Plus, News Hub Fantasy offers mock drafts, pick'em games, and so much more all season long. So don't miss out on the action. Sign up now at newshubfantasy.com and become the ultimate football fantasy manager. All right, my friends, we are back with our crack staff, or whatever you want to call it. Aaron and Dino from CFL News Hub, breaking down the draft for you. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Get alerted on the latest news coming from the CFL. Super excited to be with you guys right now. We're into the second round now, and I assume that things will pick up the pace a little bit. Dino, you were mentioning something about the draft and how things were playing out.
Sorry, in regards to what?
When we were on break, you were talking about the draft.
Oh yeah, like going to the second round, it's like you got basically Ottawa slotted at the 10th pick overall. Then they pick again at the 12th pick overall in the second round. Then they pick again in the 17th, and they also open up the third round with pick number 19. So they're basically going to have like 4 picks. Again, it's one of those things when you stockpile picks in the past via trades or whatever the case may be. This is definitely the fastest way you turn your team around. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you see in the second round, we talked about the territorial pick, and then you're right. Yeah, third round, it's right back into it. So for the second round of the CFL draft, Ottawa Red Blacks again at number 10, Saskatchewan Roughriders at 11, Ottawa Red Blacks again at 12 via trade with Hamilton and via trade with Edmonton. So I guess 2 trades happened there. Montreal Alouettes at 13. 14 is the BC Lions. 15 Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Your Grey Cup champions return Mike Mitchell's team at 6 at the Toronto Argonauts. Then the Red Blacks with the territorial pick. And then also at number 18, Edmonton with a territorial pick. Names I don't see here. I don't see Hamilton Tiger Cats anywhere. And I don't see Calgary Stampeders on this list. And that's it. So they are out of a pick. Stamps next pick, though, it looks like they in the third round, they have 2 picks in the third round at 22 and 24. And then Hamilton doesn't come back on the board until 29th, the 4th round, via a trade with Edmonton. And they got 2 picks in the 4th round at 29 and 31 in the draft. So we'll take you through to the next hour or so with these drafts going to the second round. So basically, if the way it's going to work is that on TSN, they're doing the first 2 hours on television, and then rounds 3 all the way to round 8 is going to be online, and you can get that over on cfl.ca/draft tracker. We'll be covering it, all this stuff on CFL News Hub. Each of our guys will do a recap article of the players drafted in there for their respective teams. And then also what you need to think about is the timeline. So let's see here. So May 2nd, of course, is the CFL draft. May 10th is rookie camp. So basically, within 8 days, these guys will be at rookie camp. Training camp begins for the CFL on May 14th. I mean, which is not that long away. 12 days training camp begins. The first preseason game is May 2023. So the 22nd is the first preseason game. And then regular season kicks off June 8th at June 8th, 2023. The regular season begins. My friends, 31 days until CFL kickoff. And we got our first pick in round 2, number 10, Ottawa Red Blacks take Lucas Cormier, DB from Mount Allison. Aaron, do you know anything about Lucas Cormier?
Well, I've recently seen some good reports on Lucas Cormier from his performance at the CFL Combine. I think the jury's out on whether or not he's going to be an impact player, but he might be a good role player. And for Red Blacks, it's a numbers game. They need to get a lot of guys on the roster so they can evaluate them and fill in as many spots as they can. And I think he's a good guy to probably fit in well on special teams and be used in a lot of different areas and be a utility player on defense. He has good size. He has good length. He can come out and find a spot to maybe a safety, potentially at a corner, and give them some flexibility on how to, build around some of their stronger positioning groups.
Well, it's interesting that Marshall has him as in the third round, the pick for Ottawa Red Blacks. And here they draft him in the second round. He had him at 19th overall. Says Lucas Cormier is a couple years away from being a CFL mainstay, in my opinion. He's got all the size and natural feel needed. Once he adjusts to the CFL game, he'll be ready to help consistently on the Red Blacks back end. But special teams reps will be ready to fly immediately. The perfect fit for an East Coast kid ready to contribute happily on coverage teams, Bob Dice and the Ottawa Red Blacks. So he had him, interestingly enough, going in the third round, not the second round. He had at number 10 as Harrison Bagayago, DB from Guelph. He had him as the top pick in the second round, but actually they decided to pick him in the second round, but they picked him in from the third round. You get my drift. So there you have it with the second pick. So Saskatchewan Roughriders are now on the clock at number 11. Originally, they were number 3. Lake Corte Moore, a defensive lineman. I mean, Aaron, who do you think Saskatchewan should be picking up here at number 11?
I think they should pick up an offensive lineman. I think they need beef on both sides of the ball. And I think Philip Grahovac's sitting out there, a good run blocker. They need people they can build around on both lines of scrimmage, especially protect Trevor Harris. So he would be the next guy I would pick if I was with Saskatchewan. But it's hard to tell because it depends on what they value. I think they hit on both lines of scrimmage need assistance, but do they think any of the guys available are a good fit? I think that's a problem they run into. Are they going to be a good fit for what they want to do and fit into their long-term plan? And if they don't, it's, in my mind, hard to predict what they would pick if they don't pick up an offensive lineman.
Dino, what do you think about Trevor Harris in Saskatchewan?
You know what? I like, here's the thing though, because like when you look at, let's say the quarterback swapping of what happened, I really do feel bad for Trevor Harris, right? Because not last season, but the season before, when again the Elks were like really, really horrific. I mean, statistically he was really, really bad, and I don't put the onus on him. If anything, I mean, you look at like even like last year and the year before that for the Elks. I mean, every time the ball was snapped, there was somebody in the backfield. There was pressure left, right, and center. If you don't have like more than like 2 seconds or 3 seconds, I mean, the bare minimum, it's not fair on him. So then he gets shipped out to Montreal, does some pretty good things, struggle a touch, but at the same time, due to injury and relief, and then no one thought Vernon Adams Jr. will be struggling, so he gets shipped out to BC. Then all of a sudden, Trevor Harris looks good again, right? And now he's going to Sask, and Fajardo's going to Montreal. I felt bad for Fajardo in Saskatchewan as well. I don't think the onus was completely on him. Now, mind you, with that said, I mean, I think Saskatchewan are going to have open arms with him. There's no doubt with Trevor Harris. However, I mean, I think he's probably going to need another receiver to really help him out. They did lose some talent at the wide receiver position. You know what? I mean, they did pick up, Darrell Walker, who's like a staple in Edmonton, but he's on his last leg. Schaefer Baker, I believe, is not really going to be part of their plan. So, I mean, he's going to need an offensive weapon. And even if it's like a triple back, right? Like, give me a running back that could run and block and catch, that's great at the flats and catching the ball and becoming that third receiver, let's say, or fourth receiver option. I like Harris, but I think he's going to do well in Montreal. Sorry, in Saskatchewan.
I mean, Jared Wayne is still a guy that's still out there as a possibility if you to get some offense. Yeah, I felt bad for Trevor Harris. I like him a lot. And it's weird with these guys in the CFL. It's like they, I mean, Cody Fajardo was, almost the, he was kind of basically going to be a star in the CFL, and then just one season went from like, I mean, the guy in Saskatchewan to like, all right, we don't have anything to do with him anymore. And then it's like all these same guys move around, these moving parts. I mean, I don't know if Taylor Cornelius is going to be, a long-term guy in the CFL. I mean, he did play better. And then, all right, we've got our pick here. Jackson Ford from Regina, a DB, 6'1", 190. He was selected 11th by the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Jackson Ford, where was he on this list? Well, let's see here. Jackson Ford, Marshall had him in the 6th round going to Saskatchewan. So he got the team right, but he got the round wrong. Number 6, Jackson Ford. Any of you guys know anything about Jackson Ford?
Not overly a lot, but I could see like the trend that I'm noticing now when you look at with the Ottawa pick and now with Saskatchewan. Sometimes this happens. Maybe it's not the projected round where it's like 5, 6 rounds later. But if they believe that this guy's game ready or they don't want to lose him later on in the round, and they know that this person's probably not going to try an NFL tryout, then yeah, you know what? Take the pick right now because at least you already have somebody that's going to show up to training camp. And I have a feeling that's what this is. Yeah, maybe they could have drafted him the next round or even the round after that. But I think they speak highly of Jackson Ford. And before you know it, it's like, fine, just draft him right now so no one takes him.
Yeah, Aaron, you had mentioned early in the draft about how you think now is the time where these guys are still, the second round is a place where you're going to get guys that are training camp ready versus going to take a shot at the NFL?
I believe so. Especially a guy as local as Ford, going to Regina. I think he's a guy to be a good fit that want to play with Saskatchewan, have some pride about the team, want to contribute in multiple ways. I can see a lot of positives to having a player like him there. Might come in hungry. He's not on my list, so he's going to come in and have to prove something, and that's a good thing to have. If you're a team trying to get better, it's nice to have guys who are excited to be there and need to prove themselves. You can get a lot from that. So Ford gives them a chance to have a local talent that's willing to come out and prove that he has what it takes to stick.
Yeah. So let's have some fun for a second. And let's go back in time, shall we? Let's go back to last year, 2020. And let's take a look at the 2020 draft while Ottawa Redblacks are on the clock. So Terrell Richards, linebacker, Syracuse. I don't know if he played at all, or I don't think so, right?
Not that, to be honest with that name, no, I don't really recall if he. Not sure if he even. Yeah, that doesn't ring a bell. I'm trying to figure out whether or not he even played, or maybe he was just on special teams for the time being.
So number 2, the Red Blocks took Zach Pilhos, Nathan Cherry, BC Lions with the 3rd pick, Enoch Maconzo, DB, Coastal Carolina from Elks, Jalen Philpott, Calgary, Gregor McKellar was the 6th pick offensive lineman, Samuel Emilius, Louisiana Tech wide receiver, Trey Ford, the big name Trey Ford, that was a big name out there. Tyson Philpott also, wide receiver, Calgary, that was the 9th pick. In the 2nd round in 2022, Deontay Knight, a defensive lineman for the Argos, and then Terrell Ford, Waterloo, DB, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So Anthony Frederico from Queens, a defensive lineman. So, I mean, any of these guys make a big impact? I mean, I know some of the wide receivers did, but any of these guys from 2022 really make an impact last season?
I think the Philpott brothers made some good strides. And the good thing about what Montreal did with Philpott, one of the Philpotts was that, they were also utilizing him as being a return guy as well, whether it's kick returns or kickoff returns. Mm-hmm. And again, like I said, I speak so highly on special teams that if you're not going to be a starting receiver, that is the one place where you show your stuff and you'll get more playing time. And he wasn't really the go-to target. Obviously Eugene Lewis was, and thank God the Elks picked up him and made a big splash to help out Cornelius. But he's going to be a player that's going to be very, very good for the Alouettes. And his brother with Calgary, did some really, really good things in the secondary, right? So I would say probably at that list alone, I probably go with the Philpott brothers.
Yeah. Aaron, what's your take on last year's draft class? Some of those
I agree.
names.
From that list you listed, the Philpott brothers are definitely standouts from that list. I would say any draft, whatever league you're in, it's a lottery, and you make your picks, and it's always hard to tell who's going to be able to rise up. The Philpotts came out and both made an impact on the league. I think even in the NFL draft, we have 260 some picks. The stats say 65 of those guys are going to come out and be players for you, and the rest will kind of wash away. And I think with several less picks in the CFL draft, it's probably proportional. And the Philpotts, they have name recognition. So I think you pick people, you bring them in, and you have to evaluate them and see how they fit in. And it's hard to predict sometimes who's going to be the best fit.
Yeah. Let's have some fun. How about 2021? This was Jake Burt. And I remember last season hearing his name called. I was I remember I was like, wait a second, a tight end in the CFL? Why did you pick him? Nelson Lacombo, Liam Dobson. I mean, those are names that were taken. Let's see, anybody else here that kind of jumps out. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. You get some names that pop out and other names that don't. You're right. I mean, that's why they call it the draft lottery. So they call that the draft lottery for nothing. All right, we've got another pick on the board. Ottawa Redblacks take a linebacker, James Peter from Ottawa, 5'1". 5'1"? That can't be right. Is that right? 220?
I'm looking at his video clips right now on TSN. To be honest with you, I don't think it's 5'1", but I'm not sure. But then again, I mean, he does look short. He does look pretty short when he made a tackle right now. When we're looking at some when they were showing some game footage. With that said, though, the funny thing too about this and University of Ottawa, you know what? He probably just leaves his dorm and goes across the street now, right? I mean, it'd be like when the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted players at the University of Pittsburgh, they share the same stadium, anyways, right?
Yeah. So he was slotted to go the number 20th overall pick, a first-team U Sports All-Canadian this past season. James Peter is undersized. He can't be 5'1".
Can I make
Yeah,
one note?
that's what I'm going to look up right now. I mean, if it is 5'1", good on him, right? I mean,
Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
Ottawa has it listed as 5'10".
Okay.
So that makes more sense.
It's kind of funny though, because I'm looking at the ticker on my phone right now, and they actually have him at 5'1", 220 pounds.
I think they forgot the zero.
Yeah.
All right.
Or whatever. Like, yeah. But hey, you know what? If he's 5'1", good on him, man. If he could play, he could play.
It says James Peters undersized, but we've having confirmation that he is 5'10" and not 5'1". But okay, but flat out makes plays at a variety of levels in the GG's defense. Thinks Jones and Gilroy take a swing here. Plays bigger on special teams. So he had him going to Edmonton at 20, but James Peter, linebacker. We have confirmation that he's probably 5'10". Next pick, David Delary from Laval, a fullback, first running back-ish taken, 6'3", 217. A fullback. Interesting that they take a fullback here. Dino, what do you think about this pick?
Yeah, I think what this is probably is that with Danny Machocha, what he was doing is that, looking at the defensive side of the ball, I have a feeling what he probably wanted to do is, like, let's face it. I mean, this is actually a pretty good move when you think of this. William Stanback is a heck of a running back. I mean, just absolutely phenomenal, right? So if you can't really find, let's say, an offensive lineman that you like right now, fullback's a pretty good option, right? I mean, it helps out your pass blocking and everything. Anyone that knows me as a football fan, I love the running game, right? As much as, like, I love the passing game as well. I think the running game is so vital for clock management. And anytime you get to have a guy now that could catch the ball to the flats, block for your quarterback, maybe be the extra set of eyes on a blitz, or especially on the blind side for your quarterback. And then more importantly, hey man, I'm old school. Like, you hand that ball up the middle and you get a fullback out there to lead block and just open up the holes. I mean, that's where I could see this move coming in, and I think it's an interesting move, and I actually like this move. What Montreal just did right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so Montreal with a lot of picks so far. I mean, 3 picks. They take a linebacker and Jonathan Sutherland, Lawal Ugak, defensive lineman. So 2 defensive linemen, and then going to a fullback, I guess a blocking guy. Um, Montreal, interesting, putting together an interesting draft class so far. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Make sure you smash that like button. Leon says, I read about Bagadagio at CFL News Hub. Don't know why he hasn't been drafted yet. And he also asks, how long do CFL teams wait to draft players who were drafted by NFL teams? I don't.
I think you're still allowed to draft them, but I could like let's just say, for example, the Chase brothers. If you are going to draft them just because you want, let's say, their CFL rights, like they're going to the NFL and they're probably going to start at some point if they're not going to start right away. I'd rather wait for that until like the 5th to 7th round, right? If you really want them in the future. But yeah, I wouldn't be one to like jump on that and like burn a first 2-3 picks just on somebody that has a good chance of having a pretty good career in the National Football League.
All right, let's see what else. Ryan Comier says, my cousin up there at 10th. Yes, sir. Congratulations, Ryan, there on your cousin getting drafted. Let's see. Hunt says, Winnipeg is a good team, no denying it. I'll ask one question. What's the plan should Zach Collaros get hurt? Dino, what are they going to do if Zach Collaros, who's kind of gotten binged up? I mean, there was concern about him heading into the Grey Cup. What do you think about Zach Collaros?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, like, you know what? The good thing about him, too, is that, I mean, he's probably one of the smartest quarterbacks in this league. I mean, he knows when to, like, absorb a hit a certain way, how to absorb a hit. He doesn't really put himself in a vulnerable state. Mind you, he also has, some heck of offensive linemen. I mean, led by Stanley Bryan, who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. However, he is going to be playing his last year as a Bomber. It is a good question. It's a very valid question. I haven't seen too much about Drew Brown, who's our backup. With that said, yeah, I mean, hey, it is a league where, let's just say he does get hurt. How good is that team going to be? Are they going to be more running heavy than pass heavy? With that said, though, I mean, I'm not going to lie about it. I could see why when they made the trade, when Saskatchewan, was it when they made that trade though for, what was it, when he got traded to the Argonauts? I can't remember, what was he prior? It was like a 2-way trade or whatever. But I could see why, Toronto traded him, because I mean, he was already at 3 concussions, and that one of the Simone Lawrence a couple of years ago. I mean, I could see why people were a bit worried. However, he's never really had any physical abuse that put him out like there's no tomorrow. But that's still in a lot of people's in the back of their minds, right? It is a great question. Are they ready though if Zach Collaros gets hurt? It's a very valid question. I'm not sure if they still go with Drew Brown or if they invited whoever for their training camps as well.
Yeah, Brent says says they'll lose a lot of games. That's what would happen if he goes down here. It's a good point. That's a good point.
Oh no, there's no doubt. It's a very valid question. I still think their defense will keep them in there a lot of the games, but I think it's gonna be one of those things where they're gonna have to shorten the playbook a bit. Like short passes, don't really test the secondary as much. Try eliminate the playbook where maybe they might be a 50-50 interception thing happening. But let's face it, they also have one of the best coaches too, and Mike O'Shea, and I'm pretty sure they could come up with some schemes to help out even a third string quarterback for that matter.
Yeah. All right, we got another pick, 14th pick, BC Lions. This was some guys that we're talking about in the chat. Sermion Harrison Bagayago, a DB, 6'2", 195 from Guelph, played at Guelph. He is now selected 14th to the BC Lions. Bagayago I think he was rated pretty high there on this list. Was he? No. I mean, the Jared Wayne is still out there, which is oh yeah, he had number 10 headed to Ottawa. He said previously had Harrison Bagayago going 20th to Edmonton. Well, he actually went 14th to BC Lions. Watched some film on him and don't think he lasts long. He'll go to a maximum early in his teens, but Ottawa will be intriguing fit for the traditionally trained press corner turned developmental free safety. So he is guy. He had him as the first pick in the second round. He actually goes 14th in the second round to the BC Lions. So now you have Winnipeg Blue Bombers are on the clock. Finally, we get to see Mike Mitchell's Toronto Argonauts with number 16th pick in the draft. Then we have the territorial picks of the Ottawa Redblacks and Edmonton Elks. Aaron, who do you think Winnipeg is looking at here at number 15?
I think it's similar to the last pick. They're gonna pick up areas of need that they're glaring. The conversation I had about the backup quarterback situation is interesting because Prukop was really good for him last year, but he's in the USFL now, and Drew Brown was not really successful as a backup quarterback. So with that in mind, they may look for protection for Colaros. You got to keep him healthy because it seems like they're betting a lot on Colaros, and he has in the past had tendencies to have some injuries pop up if he takes some hits. So I would predict they'd pick some. Offensive line is not a great spot right now, to be honest. So I could see him try to pick up a receiver, maybe. I mean, Jared Wayne's out there, but maybe there's a reason people are not picking him. So maybe a defensive back. It's hard to say. They don't have any glaring errors other than the quarterback situation. So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, speaking of quarterbacks, is there any quarterback that people are really talking about in this CFL draft? I feel like last year, that there was a lot of quarterback chatter, but this year there seems to be not really. I haven't heard any names. Have you guys?
No, none whatsoever. I haven't really heard about any quarterbacks that were even on any list for that matter, right? Even when I was roughly scrolling through the CFL site, maybe like last week or the week before. Honestly, I don't recall any quarterbacks.
Yeah, there is none. There is none on their list, and I'm just looking at running back. There's one running back, Delaware State Thomas Bertrand Huden. He's got the 25th overall pick, and then Bertrand Beluyo, running back, fullback, in the 5th round. So yeah, there's not your star running backs. Chase Brown, running back Illinois, he has him in the 6th round. So yeah, not many. There is no quarterbacks on this list. Okay, so DB Jake Kelly from Bishops, 5'11", 170 DB. He gets picked up by Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and they've got some good DBs already on that team.
Oh, they do. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, you want to talk about a team that just has a knack for the ball and picking off passes. Believe me, Winnipeg, it's a special thing they have there in the last, not even so much the last 2 years, the last 4 or 5 years, they've been a staple on how to take away the ball in the secondary.
Yeah. Aaron, what's your take on Winnipeg's defense? I mean, basically they just took another DB, which they already have. They're deep. They took a defensive lineman, a team that already has got a good defense. What do you think about their draft so far?
Well, they feed off turnovers. I mean, the reason they're dominant is because they play clean and they feed off other teams' mistakes. So it makes sense they pick up a pass rusher on the first pick, and then they pick up a good defensive back that has a bit of a reputation in these sports for making plays, for causing turnovers. So if you can rush the quarterback and get them to throw early and pick a ball off, that fits right with their mold of how they win games. They come out and play solid offense, and they make turnovers happen on defense and put themselves in position to take away your opportunities. and cash in on it. So, looking at the total picture for Winnipeg, good pass rusher, good defensive coverage, fits their mold. It's pretty, a good design.
So they got all right. So we've got 3 more picks in the draft. The Grey Cup champion, Toronto Argonauts, Chad Kelly, taking the helm this year. Which I mean, he could be a star. I'm not sure we should anoint him anything. I mean, he had really a fantastic play in the Grey Cup. Ottawa Red Blacks at 17 with the territorial pick, and then Edmonton Elks also with the territorial pick at 18. The Toronto Argos Chad Kelly situation, Aaron. What's your take on that?
I think it's hard to read. We leave Chad Kelly with a good impression in the Grey Cup, helping the team lead to an upset win over Winnipeg. It's great.
I'm not convinced.
In the past, he's shown lack of stability with his habits, and I think that's a situation they need to make sure they put solid weapons around him, so he doesn't. He's like another many CFL quarterbacks. You can't put it all on him. He can't do it by himself. He can't carry it all the weight because he's going to make a lot of mistakes then and put them in a bad spot. So they need to make sure they have support around it if they want him to succeed. If they put him out there and expect him to take over the offense, I think they're going to be disappointed with that because he hasn't shown that ability. But he's a good signal caller that can get the ball to his weapons, but they got to make sure they surround him with high quality weapons.
So if you are an offensive coordinator and the Argos management came to you, and if you were the Argos offensive coordinator and you said, hey, Chad Kelly, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, or a free agent quarterback that's out there in the CFL world of that, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, Chad Kelly, or some other, quarterback that we could bring in, who would you have taken?
Watching McLeod Bethel-Thompson and watching him in the USFL recently, he's an outstanding player.
Yeah,
I think he's showing that he's not just good at playing in the CFL, but he's a pretty dynamic quarterback. It would be tough for me not to pick McLeod Bethel-Thompson in that situation.
Yeah, he's been playing good in the USFL. So the Argos are on the clock. Let's see who they were slated to take with their pick in the second round. He's got Jeremy Murphy from Concordia, a wide receiver. This is after the guy that's top of the list has not been selected. Dino, who do you think that the Toronto Argonauts are going to take with this pick? Their first pick in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because it's like, they still have a lot of offensive weapons, and they're pretty much the mold that they have all around is like, if anything, I don't really know what to pick on the offense, right? Because I mean, their core is there. I mean, I could probably see maybe some depth at on the defense, maybe at okay, like if I'm going to go with the offense, I might say O-line, but I think they're going to probably go more defense on this one. Just add more depth. They've already stockpiled a lot on their, I mean, let's face it. I mean, Curly Gittins Jr. is going to be a star in this league. He's going to be a go-to guy. There's no doubt. I mean, they have a lot of, I mean, obviously you still have Andrew Harris there. You still have AJ Ouellette. They're going to have a 2-back system that's just going to be unbelievable and very, very difficult to stop.
Well, that's if Harris can stay healthy.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. So like for Chad Kelly, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. For the Argos, though, it's like, it's going to be tough. I still need to see more of him. Does he have the tools to be something special? Yeah, but I mean, one game in week 19, and and then or whatever, the last game of the season.
Yeah,
for the Argonauts, and then just to fill in for the the injured McLeod Bethel-Thompson. But I mean, they do have a lot of good players out there, right? I mean, so it's gonna be interesting to see.
Now, if you were the Edmonton Elks, since you're the Edmonton Elks, would you rather have Chad Kelly over Taylor Cornelius?
See, that's going to be really tough. The reason why I probably say no to Chad Kelly now, and I get it, like the sky's the limit for that guy, but I haven't seen too much of him. At least I already know what I see with Taylor Cornelius. He's got a very gifted arm. And mind you, it took a while in the second half of the season when the offensive line was a bit more stable and was able to run the ball a lot more effectively. Pass protection was a lot better. Cornelius was able to read the plays a lot better, and he was given time. So my short answer, let's say if it was like as of like right now going into this season, I would take Taylor Cornelius. But in the long term, yeah, I mean, I still need to see. It'd be no different than with Trey Ford, right? I still need to see more of him as well.
True.
To me, Cornelius earned the stripes right now. So for now, he's my starter.
He's the guy. All right. Well, we got the pick comes in. Jared Wayne, finally off the board. Pittsburgh wide receiver, 6'2", 195, slotted to be the first overall pick. But Jared Wayne now drops all the way down to the Argos, adding another wide receiver to the mix there. Let's see what he has said about Jared Wayne. Over the last couple months on whether Jared Wayne is that sweet combination of athletic, accessible, and embracing of the CFL style. The more I read about him and watched his game, I think it makes total sense for the Red Blacks, regardless of NFL prospects. Wayne's pro day numbers might have put him further up NFL teams' draft boards, but Ottawa has so many picks, I believe it will be risk, blah, blah, blah. So Jared Wayne goes to the Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. Now, none of these guys on this list have not been picked up by any other teams or signed or anything. Has any of these names jump out at you that was picked up by anybody?
No, not so much like the last, like for Jared Wayne, no, not so much. And even like going back to the last 3-4 picks, nothing really jumped out from when I was just reading stuff in general on prospects, like looking at the top 30 or 40, regardless of, let's say, like the slotting, just, in general, like here's a top 40, let's say, that are going to be potentially CFL draft players, right? Draft eligible players.
So we got the last 2 picks in the draft, well, at least for this round, and then everything goes off of TV, and then it's on to, so I assume these will be quick. Ottawa Red Blacks at number 17 with their territorial pick, and then the Edmonton Elks at 18, and then with their territorial pick. And then basically it goes down to, you got round 3, round 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8. And then the Argos clean it up with the 72nd pick in the draft. But that's going to be all night long, and you can follow that all on the draft tracker on CFL.ca. And then remember, you'll be able to check out all of the recaps of our guys here on CFL News Hub. We'll do a nice little write-up about all these players that got drafted. And, I think we should all definitely have a grade for our drafts at the end of, I think each team should grade their draft. I think that would be kind of interesting. So Ottawa Red Blacks have already had some picks. Dante Bull, offensive lineman. They've taken him. Ottawa Red Blacks took us Lucas Cormier, which his cousin was on our chat. So we got to root for him. James Peter, linebacker, taken. So you got a DB, an offensive lineman, a linebacker, and now they got a number 17th pick in the draft. Waiting for that. Let's see, anybody else before we wrap things up? Oh, Mike Mitchell left us a message there. The great Mike Mitchell says, great job, guys. Sorry I can't hop on traveling, but in my opinion, Sherman Harrison Bagadagio was the best pick in the draft. Great job by BC. Tall Canadian shutdown corner at Guelph. That is our main man, Mike Mitchell, checking in. Brent Shirky says, saved us the shame of the Bombers hosing the cup and hollowed Ryder ground. Here's to you, Chad Kelly. So clearly, Chad Kelly fan right there. So he does have fans. Chad Kelly does have fans. And I think, as far as, Bull Levi Mitchell was kind of like the superstar of the league. You had Nathan Rourke was like on the precipice. I mean, he was lighting it up at the beginning of the season, and it was like, all right, this is a guy, but then that's the problem. And then the guy goes to the NFL. Um, and then now there's kind of a little vacuum of who can be the next star. So we'll start with you, Aaron, before we final these last two picks. I mean, who is the franchise? Who is the Tom Brady, the Patrick Mahomes? You fill in the LeBron James. Like, who can step in and be the guy in the CFL? I
As
mean,
an
Chad
up and
Kelly
comer,
could be, but again, his game. We need to see what he does in this year. This year.
I hate to say, I think Cody Fajardo he's a good quarterback, and
Uh-huh.
he was in a bad situation last year. Like, he's a dual threat quarterback that I really like dual threat quarterbacks. And I think you could build an offense around his running ability and his passing ability with the right game plan. He could be really effective and rise up and become a surprisingly good quarterback in the CFL.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be a superstar, and then just things tailed off. But he did have some injury stuff. Do you know who's a guy that you would put on that pedestal as like who could be the guy for the CFL?
If I'm gonna look at, let's say, like the here and now moment, and who's already had, a combination of, yeah, I mean, we're going with players that have, had at least a year or two under the belt, or very, like, just literally a gamer, if anything, and obviously with the Chad Kelly. But if I'm looking around down that list, again, Huffnagel by picking up Jake Mayer, he's got all the tools to be something very, very special in this league for a long, long time. If I'm going to look at a quarterback that could probably be, that next Bo Levi Mitchell, that longevity quarterback that you could build your franchise around. Again, Vernon Adams Jr., it's still hit or miss for me. Not that I'm not knocking him. I think he's got a lot of tools to be something special too. Taylor Cornelius, I need to see a bit more of him. In Saskatchewan, I mean, same thing. Now we're going to look at, with Trevor Harris there. Again, I'm a big fan of him. But when I'm looking at just on that West alone, I mean, obviously, like, you're always going to have Zach Collaros there, but let's just exclude Zach Collaros on this one. I'd have to go probably with Jake Mayer across the board. He's my number 2.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we got the next pick in the draft. Daniel Aladejo, Ottawa, another wide receiver, 6 foot. 185. Did they fix that 5'1"? Oh, yes. James Peter is now 5'10" and not 5'1". Phew. We were a little worried about that one. Daniel Alabadejo from Ottawa, wide receiver. Let's see where he was slotted in the mock draft. Let's see here. He had him 17th pick for Ottawa as part of the territorial pick. So there you have it. So the 17th, he got that run right on the board. Edmonton Elks at number 18. He has got Riley Zarafransky, a defensive lineman, Alberta. Dino, what's your thoughts on could Riley be the guy with the territorial pick for your Edmonton Elks?
For the Elks, I like to see them. Yeah, he's also a guy that I was looking at that I could see as our fit as well. There's also a safety that I like out there as well that hit some strides, and it didn't play a lot either. It was more backloaded. He did make up some good plays and gain some good experience with the Golden Bears. But at the same time, too, I like to see. I'd still like to see them go with an offensive lineman as well if they could fit somewhere in there, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, you know what? The University of Alberta, they've produced a lot of good talent. So yeah, if you could do a territorial pick and stay within, by all means, you got my blessing.
Yeah, so let's see what here. It says Riley caught my eye at the Invitational Combine in Waterloo earlier this year. Both he or U of A teammates Quandando Bohemian and Donovan Bergmayer, or even Jacob Taylor, if he's still around, would be great fits for the Elks here. And that it will be the final pick of the second round. And then now I believe that the TSN is no longer has coverage from the draft. I think they're moved on to thing. They were just doing the first 2 rounds or just 2 hours. So we've got the final pick here, and then we'll wrap things up with Aaron Soder, and we got it.
Yeah,
Jacob
just
Taylor.
came in right now. This is the defensive back I was talking about. He's from Beaumont, Alberta, which is just a little bit outside of the Edmonton area.
All right, what can
His
you tell
stock
us about
actually
him?
went up in the last year or two.
Uh-huh. What can you tell us about him?
I like this move a lot because again, with a secondary overall that's relatively young, again, the fact that we also got Purifoy that helps out with a veteran presence. But even with Scott Hutter last year, very young, this Jacob Taylor is going to fit very, very well, right? Even if, hopefully, let's just say if it is Aaron Grimes last year when he plays and then eventually maybe calls it quits. I like what they picked up now when I look at, let's say, the last couple of draft picks that they had in last year's draft alone. Now with this kid coming up, this is good. They're actually retooling this secondary. I like this move.
All right. Well, there you have it. Aaron, Dino, Aaron, I guess where can fans find you on social media?
You can find me at Aaron Slaughter7 on Twitter, and I'll be reporting on the draft from the Hamilton Tiger Cats perspective and giving them a grade within the next day or so.
All right. And Dino, where can people find you on social media aside from CFL News Hub, of course?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm so lazy enough where I don't even have really any social media. So eventually, I'm gonna go onto Twitter and figure out this tweet stuff or whatever, right? And
Gotcha.
but yeah, for the time being, yeah, just hit the comment sections and at CFL News Hub.
Yeah. So both of these guys will always, reply to your comments. So definitely check out their articles, respond to them. They'll always respond to you guys. You killed it. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for spending 2 hours with me talking CFL draft. I appreciate you guys coming on the show.
Hey, thank you guys, Aaron. Nice meeting you finally in person and so forth. And a great time again. Hey, it's you only get drafted once, right? So great time. Looking forward to a really good season. I'm sure there'll be a lot of fireworks in the air come Labor Day.
Yeah.
It'd be good. Maybe we should do like a day before Labor Day game, talk group or something like that.
Sure. Absolutely. Love doing the roundtables. It'll be fun.
Thank you for letting me come on. It was great talking about Canadian football. I love the CFL, and it's awesome to talk about it, especially on draft night. It's pretty special.
Yeah, and it's fun time. All right, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
All right.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
All right. So appreciate them being on the program. Let's wrap things up. Hey, they were killed it. They were awesome. Let's just kind of do some housekeeping. So the draft will continue. The draft tracker is still live. They just went into the third round there. Aiden John from St. Mary's, defensive lineman, was taken by the Ottawa Redblacks in the third round. So if you want to follow anything, let's hit a commercial break, and then I will wrap things up real quick. Are you a fan of the XFL, USFL, and CFL football? Get ready to embrace your inner general manager with NewsHubFantasy.com's fantasy football experience. NewsHubFantasy.com offers you an unparalleled fantasy football platform bringing together fans of the XFL, USFL, and CFL football leagues. Compete in season-long fantasy with leagues up to 6 players. You can create your own for friends, or you can join an existing league. Draft your ideal team with our 7 active roster spots, including a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, flex, tight end, kicker, plus 3 bench spots. Show off your football knowledge and strategy and dominate your league. Our user-friendly interface makes it easy to manage with your team and get the latest news in your XFL or USFL or CFL leagues on the go. Plus, News Hub Fantasy offers mock drafts, pick'em games, and so much more all season long. So don't miss out on the action. Sign up now at newshubfantasy.com and become the ultimate football fantasy manager. All right, we are back, my friends, and we're going to wrap up the show. But first, we have another pick. Philip Grohovec, Western University offensive lineman, was taken with the 20th pick. So now we've got the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Stampeders, Elks, Stamps, Red Blacks, Blue Bombers, and then your Toronto Argonauts to wrap up. This is round 3 of the CFL draft. If you, my voice is starting to go. So remember, if you ever want to be part of our show, we're going to bring back our CFL News Hub week in review show once the season kind of kicks going. I only got so much bandwidth to go around, so but definitely be on the lookout for that. We'll definitely do some more reporter roundtables, have some great interviews and stuff like that. But this is not going to be on the podcast. This is just kind of on YouTube. Remember the timeline. May 2nd, today is the CFL draft. Rookie camp, May 10th. Training camp, May 14th. May 22nd, first preseason game, and then June 8th, it's when the regular season begins, my friends. 37 days until CFL kickoff. To me, like when the CFL kicks in, that's like summertime. That's like summertime. And to be honest with you, if I may be so bold, and make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, all right? Help us out. Let's get this to 50 likes, will you? But smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll have a full recap of all this stuff on CFL News Hub. To be honest with you, I don't really care about the NFL season. I know, and I'm from the United States. I am more amped to see all the storylines taking place with the CFL this season. I'm kind of, we cover the XFL and XFL News Hub. We cover the USFL and USFL News Hub. We cover the CFL and, you guessed it, CFL News Hub. So we cover all those leagues. But we have a team of dedicated reporters, like just for CFL. We have a team of dedicated reporters just for USFL and one for the XFL. And I enjoy these leagues. And I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, when the NFL season, like once the Grey Cup is over, like, I don't care about football at that point. I'm just going to be chilling, waiting for the XFL season, the USFL season to start. So, yeah. I mean, get excited, my friends, because it's coming. And the CFL is kind of like the summertime. Some football, some CFL football will be a lot of fun. Matt Dean, linebacker, York, was taken 21st overall in the draft. Hey, shout out to all you guys in the chat room. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. It's a lot of fun. We'll do more of these throughout the season, but it is time to wrap things up. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. That's it for me, folks. Enjoy the rest of the draft. Remember, full coverage on USFL News Hub. You're not going to want to miss it. That's it for me, folks. As always, God bless, and I will see you all later.